I'd like to turn the floor over to Insaaf Mohamed, a social worker for RISE organisation who's joining us live from Somalia. RISE is a women-led community-based NGO founded in 2014 to address inequalities and humanitarian gaps affecting vulnerable groups in Somalia, particularly women, children and displaced communities. It has worked closely with the Human Rights Protection Group, HRPG, at the United Nations Transitional Assistance Mission in Somalia, UNTMIS, on human rights protection and responses to sexual violence, including case management and referrals for survivors. In 2026, RISE and HRPG renewed their partnership to strengthen protection and service support efforts, especially in light of the anticipated UNTMIS exit. Insaaf, can you please tell us about the situation for child survivors of conflict-related sexual violence in Somalia? And in particular, how do you ensure a survivor-centred approach for the children is applied and that caregivers are empowered to conduct the work safely?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. And my name is Insaaf Mohamed. And Baidoa is in my region and one of the areas most severely affected by the conflict in all of Somalia. And I work in a city hosting over 400,000 displaced people and families who fled Al-Shabaab group violences and withdrawals and clan conflicts, who arrived with absolutely nothing. And the children I serve are predominantly girls between the age of 8 and 17. And they have survived sexual violence perpetrated by armed actors and community members, and sometimes the very people they trusted most. But the hardest trust is this, and most survivors never reach me at all because in Baidoa, silent is survival. And families do not report because fear of stigma and retaliation and the future of their daughters. And I have sat with mothers and who know exactly what happens to their daughters and begged me not to write it down. I once looked into the eyes of 10 years old girl who apologized to me, and that exactly what happened to her was her fault. And that is the reality I face every day, every single day. And a survivor-centered approach is a core pillar of my professional practice. And let me tell you what actually looks like at 8 a.m. in a dusty IDB camp in Baidoa. And I want to illustrate this through the case of Holland. And Holland is not her real name, it's a nickname. And Holland is a 13 years old survivor I worked with in Tawfiq camp. And Holland arrived into our safe space completely silent. And her mother arrived just as lost, telling me I don't know what to say to my daughter anymore. And we worked with both of them. Holland received medical care, psychosocial counseling at her own base, and eventually education. And her mother received her own counseling and joined our caregiver support group and was trained in a trauma-informed care. And the moment that stayed with me, the moment that stayed with me was with her mother came to me and said, I used to tell Holland to forget and move forward. Now I understand sitting with her is being stronger for her. And 12 months later, Holland now is in school, and her mother is a community volunteer protecting other children. And one family, 1 year, that is what Survivor Center care looks like. And to maintain this, I ensure ethical case management, safeguarding, and I make sure intervention do not re-traumatize survivors. I remember sitting with a girl aged 10 years old who had already been asked to repeat her story 5 times by others. And before reaching me, by the time she came to my office, she was re-traumatized. That must never happen under my watch or the one of people I mentor. The second one is pace, and I follow the child's pace. And I also now I cannot protect children without protecting the people who cares them. And Baidoa and caregivers I support are them service displaced and exhausted. They are trying to support and to traumatize a child while barely surviving themselves. So how do we empower them as rights? And first, we see them as human beings. And when a caregiver comes to me, the first question I ask is not only how is the child, and I ask how are you, and I had a caregivers break down crying because nobody had asked them that question in months. And second, we provide training for caregivers. And at RISE, we teach caregivers how to recognize the stigma, the signs of stigma, what to do or what not to do. And third, then we build a community, and fourth, we invest in our own staff. And RISE provides mandatory psychosocial support and dedicated security protocols and regular supervision. And for me, empowerment is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong journey, and that requires sustained investment and support. And to conclude, this is the reality of Somalia, and this is what we work in Somalia. And we are not just managing projects, we are navigating a landscape of survival. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Insaaf, for highlighting the importance there of putting the survivor at the center of any action with survivors of conflict-related sexual violence. And in cases involving children, which means making their parents and tutors also vectors of key principles, values, and commitments. And your experience that you just described there, working in survivor support with IDP communities, clearly highlights how displacement, conflict, and indeed the effects of climate change are red flags for women and girls in Somalia and significantly exacerbate the protection environment. So your testimony also reminds us that all survivors, including children, can seek justice, redress and fight stigma. But this, of course, requires a solid community approach with caretakers, caregivers, and social workers fully involved in the response.